change. Oh, there we go. Kyle, you're in the lead.
Am I here?
Yes.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Awesome. I'm here. I love it. My phone likes me. My computer hates me. So we're going to make it work. But glad to be here. We've got two Alexes today.
That's right.
Alex Chappell, Alex Smith,
Indeed.
and then the man, Justin Pache. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Doing all right.
Doing great.
How's Hawaii, Alex?
Oh, another nice sunny 80-degree day here. No complaints.
Are you going to go surfing today?
I went fishing over the weekend, so I got a little work catch up to do.
You catch anything?
Yeah, we got a nice size Ono, actually.
What did you eat it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it, man. That's amazing. All right, let's see if we get some folks on the live. Can any of you guys see how many are on? We waiting for some people to come in.
Looks like we got 10, 11.
10. All right, 11. Okay, not bad. Today we're going to be talking about subdividing, and specifically not wasting all your time trying to get all your numbers right before you actually start sending offers. I see a lot of people that just go analyze a property to death before they even actually make an offer on it, and that just doesn't end up working out very well. So we're going to talk about how can you get into a spot where you can analyze a property in like 30 minutes and get to a place where you can make an offer knowing that you're at least in the ballpark, and you can do the rest of the big underwriting stuff once you're under contract or
Kyle,
moving that direction.
Kyle, real quick, can you talk about why it's so important to have a quick time to analyze? Like why is that so important? Yeah,
so a lot of these people are talking, these sellers are talking to multiple people looking to buy their property, right? Or they might get bored of the idea of selling their property. The maximum time kills all deals is still true when you're looking at subdivide properties with those sellers. So what we really want to do is from the first time you talk to somebody and find out that they're interested, the longer you wait before you get an actual offer in front of them, a piece of paper, the higher likelihood that they just jump ship, they go to somebody else that made them an offer quicker, they become disinterested in selling their property, or their realtor friend calls them and says, hey, your property's worth $100 million, don't sell it to these guys. So it's pretty important to get to an offer quickly so that you don't lose the deal. We want to get the deals, we want to reel them in, getting people on the hook early. So that's the main thing. So what I like to do, and what you guys should do, I think, is a little back of napkin math, right? It doesn't have to be super complicated. You want to know the numbers generally, and you don't even have to know what the seller wants for their property. We like to do just a little back of napkin math, and it goes like this. What product are we making? So if we're subdividing a property, what's the end product going to be? How much do we think we can sell that for? Each one of those lots or that development or whatever, what do we think it's worth? Rough idea of what do we think it's going to cost to get there. Doesn't have to be exact, and it probably won't be exact. But you need to know, if you're building a road, that's going to be a huge expense rather than if you're not building a road. If you're bringing in infrastructure, utilities, water, sewer, that's going to be a big thing rather than if you're not. So you need to have a rough idea of ballpark numbers for what you're going to spend and back that out of what you're going to pay for it. And then you just need to have a return metric that you need to hit. And that'll kind of back you into the offer that you're willing to give. Justin, does that make sense? Does that jive kind of with how you approach things?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have a couple like quick ways of even before you make an offer on something, you have to decide if it's even worth making an offer on. Like, can you make it happen? And so for me, like the first thing I do when I look at a property is honestly, I pull a price. I figure out what my end product's going to be, and then I pull a price like from Max's price comp report to kind of get a trend of like what is the price trend as you split parcels smaller and smaller. All right, and that I don't, those numbers vary based on the data that goes into them. I would never base a true offer on on just some sort of average number. I would want to find hard comps, but just to get a rough idea if it's going to be a good potential development areas, how much appreciation can you force on that lot? Right. And then like a quick back of napkin, if I was literally just looking at something, would be what is the end product worth? If I can buy the current land at about 60% of that using leverage, generally those pencil out. Those pencil out pretty well, depending on how much development. Now, I don't do a lot of expensive road infrastructure builds, some dirt roads, maybe $1 a foot type roads. But once you start getting into like true asphalt paving, true underground utilities, those are hard to do very quickly. You're not going to be able to razor in on those numbers really quickly. But if it's a limited construction and infrastructure development, a lot of road frontage, splits, some culverts, driveways, clearing work, I find that 60% of the final product is a really good ballpark starting point for what I can offer if you're using leverage.
You guys have mentioned end product a few times. For somebody that's new to subdivides, like what are some potential end products that would go on land? Houses, obviously. What else would fall into that? Like what else could people look for as far as end products go?
Yeah, so that excellent question. And really for people who are starting out in the Subdivide space, or they're looking to do their first one, what I mean when I say end product is like a 10-acre lot, like just a blank space that somebody's going to be able to buy and come put their home, their shop, their horses, or whatever. So what we're really trying to hone in on are these Subdivide opportunities where we don't have to go through a lot of approvals, right? So each state's a little bit different, and each county is going to be a little bit different. But if you've identified a market where you'd like to sort of do this strategy, if you can figure out what type of deals can I do where I don't have to go through a full plat approval process, those are the deals that I want to do, because it's going to be far fewer headaches. You're going to be able to create the end product. And when I say that, I mean the lot that somebody's going to buy, right? Because we're buying land, buy big land, sell small land, right? Like in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. Buy big land, sell small land. And so you have to know what that small land is going to be, right? So for a lot of people, that's going to be, a 5 or a 10-acre lot that doesn't have a whole lot of restrictions. That's going to be sort of, semi-rural. It's not going to be in the middle of the city. It probably has power. Maybe you're going to have to put a water well or something like that. But you need to see, okay, on this big property, what am I creating? You're probably not going and buying and building the actual houses. You're not constructing any of the buildings. Like, that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is what I call paperwork improvements primarily, right? Like, we buy a big piece of property, we do some paperwork, we get a survey, it has a drawing, and all of a sudden we turn one property into like 5 or 6 properties, right? That's the end product. So for some people, that's smaller residential lots, and that's a different way of thinking. For most people getting into it, what I encourage them to do is look for platting exempt subdivide opportunities, things where you can just subdivide a piece of land and you don't have to ask anyone's permission, because the law says that you don't have to ask anyone's permission. So
how would somebody find that out if something's plot exempt?
Yeah. So each county is going to have a subdivision regulation. So easiest way is to Google, so-and-so county subdivision regulations. And usually it'll, have a list of definitions, and then it'll have some defined exemption, right? Like says these regulations apply to any subdivision of land except for XYZ, right? So if you meet these criteria, you don't have to follow that law. You can just go get a survey and be on your way, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And normally these are fairly similar on a state level, and on a county level, they vary slightly. So like we know, like on a general state level, that Texas is 10-acre minimums. Like on a general state level, Arizona is also a 10-acre minimum with a max of 5 splits. So you kind of have this going into your marketing, as you're going into knowing that, okay, we're working in this state, we're working in approximately this county. So there's some sort of background on what we think we can create as an end product. We can take that 100 acres and we know we can go down to 10 acres if we're in the state of Texas. And then that gives us like that general rule. And then once you actually get into the county side, you dive into the true county specific regulations for that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, I think, it starts with what the market wants, right? I mean, you can subdivide land all over the place, but if you're not, like we go back to the end product, what do people want to buy in that market? If you look at let's say you're looking at a 100-acre tract and there's a good bit of road frontage, you can cut it along the long way of the road into 10-10s, for example. Now, is that 100 acres surrounded by other 10s, 20s, smaller tracts like it? Is there a market and appetite for that product in that market? Because you're not going to go to the middle of this huge swath of fields for miles and miles and miles in every way, and then just cut up a field in the middle of it into 10 acres and say, oh, now I'm going to sell these lots, right? You want to build something that's desirable for the end state. And the other thing I would just say is, at least for me, I'm not afraid of going through a full approval, like a plat approval process. It takes time, but if that's what the market wants, it can be worth it. A lot of them aren't really that involved. It's going to be county and municipality dependent. In general, county requirements are significantly more relaxed than municipality requirements. Municipality would be like a city, right? A city or a town, the county wouldn't have jurisdiction. And if you get into one of those localized areas, oftentimes there's a lot of extra requirements added onto it as well. But I mean, if you're creating a good end product, it could be worth it. It's just something you have to figure out in your underwriting. What's the hold time? How much extra cost is it going to take for me to get what the county actually wants? Can I build the team in this local place to actually execute? Can I get the engineer? Can I get the surveyor? Can I get the dirt work guy or whatever else you need? Can I get approvals? But yeah, anyway, just a quick little aside there.
Okay, well, to bring that back to kind of what we were originally talking about, making quick offers, all of that is like homework, right? It's like your foundation. You have to know the market you're shopping in. What do people want? You have to know the market you're shopping in. What are the regulations? What are the exemptions? What can you get away with without having to get approval? You need to know, generally speaking, like, where do people get water around here? Where do they get sewer from, or do they have septic? And what's the process for doing something like that? All of that is like background, right? Like base level background knowledge that you can gain that knowledge through study and reading and experience. All of that's going to help you be very quick on making an offer, right? So if you're looking in a market that you've identified, you want to do a project here, what people are buying because you're watching the market, you're looking at comps, you're seeing what is sort of flying off the shelf. You know what the regulations are, generally speaking, and what the exemptions are. When a property lands in your lap, all of those things are going to help you make a fast offer. Because if you know all those things in the background, you can say, okay, yeah, I know I can cut this up into 10s with all this road frontage. Each parcel needs to have, let's say 100 feet of road frontage, 100-foot width of road frontage, because that's what the regulations say. I know that, people normally use this type of septic system or whatever here. I can look at the soils and give an estimate, guesstimate of if that's going to be okay. You can run through that analysis, in 3 or 4 minutes, and then you can spend 25 minutes sort of doing some quick and dirty underwriting, right? So you look at it, what's the end product going to be? You already know that. All right. What do you think you can sell it for? Well, you can just confirm what you have been researching all along. Okay, does this price make sense in this particular area? Like, am I right on that? Am I wrong on that? Do I need to adjust it? Okay, what do I think it's going to cost based on what I see, right? Probably, hopefully, you don't have to build any roads. You're just going to do some cosmetic CapEx, gravel driveways, culverts, some fencing, clearing, things like that to make it look nice. And you can maybe get a guesstimate there. And then, okay, I want to hit a 1.5 or a 1.6 or whatever unlevered return. And boom, there's a blank box with an offer that you can make on what number you need to buy it at for it to make sense. Alex, Alex C, any additional commentary on that based on stuff you've done?
No, absolutely. I mean, we're doing the same thing. We're really looking at those same steps of getting to those offers quickly in place. And then when he talks about like that, for kind of the newer people here, that unlevered return, that's forcing, it's kind of like the opposite of how Justin was saying, we want to be 60% below what that is. The 1.6x is we're looking to, or 1.4x, then we're looking for like being able to force appreciation by at least 40% or at least 50% on that from the start of the project to the end of the project. And the things that like we look at when I'm going through these Subdivide or minor Subdivide deals is what's the access to the property, what's the easiest utilities, and then how do we just back out everything. We're just starting with really like an end number, what we think our gross project's going to sell for, and then how do we get back to our offer price. And that happens fairly quickly, like Kyle was saying. It's that back of napkin math, and then that gets us our initial offer.
Yeah, and usually what you want to do when you're sending these offers, you know, if you're coming from a world where you're flipping land, like you buy low, immediately relist and sell for more than you paid for it, like your contracts are probably fairly simple. They're going to be a little bit more complex in these situations. But generally what you're going to do is take that first 30 days or so while you're under contract. That's going to be the time where you really dig into the numbers, where, you know, if you got an estimate for, you know, gravel driveways and culverts, you're going to call the gravel guy and the culvert guy and see, hey, how much is this going to cost me, you know, for 5 lots? You know, it's got a ditch on the side of the road. Like, how big of a culvert do I need, etc. You're going to call the local land agent, the realtor that has sold the most land in that area in the past few months, and you're going to ask them, hey, this is kind of what I think the price is going to be. Is that reasonable? You know, if you were going to list this project for all these lots to sell fairly quickly, like what would you list it for? And just get a heat check there. So that first 30 days is where you're going to verify all of the assumptions that you made in your quick and dirty underwriting, so that you can either confirm, hey, this is a good deal and probably better than I thought, or if it comes back, you know, just way off, you can either try to readjust the purchase price or walk away from the deal if it's really not going to make sense for you. But what I see a lot of times is people try to do all of that confirming and verifying and like deep dive underwriting before they even call the seller. And then they call the seller like, oh yeah, I signed another contract with somebody else. Or we decided not to sell, like we had this big family reunion and we just all love it so much. Like, you don't want that to happen to you, right? Like, the time after you get under contract, that's the time where you verify all of your underwriting assumptions. So that's like the key takeaway here is don't wait to get something under contract until, you know, you don't have to do all of the underwriting in a deep dive.
I mean, not just like, do you not have to do that because you could lose the deal to somebody else, or, you know, for the reasons you said earlier, why you want to get back a quick offer, but also it's just not a good use of your time until you have something locked, you know, it's something under contract. Spending the hours and phone calls and lining up the contractors that's going to take to get those numbers really honed in. Right now, if you're now when you're in the negotiation phase, let's say you submit an offer and they come back and they submit a counter, okay, and they're engaged. They're countering, you know, that may be a time where you need to start getting sharper on that pencil and figuring out some of those numbers to decide, hey, can I actually come up? Are my margins good enough with the true numbers that I'm going to get? But on that initial offer, I would definitely not be wasting much time doing that. Anytime, really, doing it.
So I got a question for Justin and Kyle. How long are you typically taking from that initial seller phone call or the property coming onto your desk until you actually send that person an offer or an offer range?
I mean, I would say next day, unless there's something like really funky about the property. I would say the next day. You know, just be engaged with them and say, hey, look, you know, thanks for talking with me. I'm going to take a closer look at this. I'll get back to you tomorrow with the number that we're comfortable with. And at the very least, getting sort of a verbal agreement on the number gives you a little bit of breathing room to navigate, you know, the 7, 8, 9 page contract that you're going to have to send them, and getting sort of all the contingencies lined up and doing all that stuff. If you can get them like, hey, yes, we agree. It's almost like, you know, like an LOI would be, right? Like, you're agreeing on the major terms, like price, when you're going to close, if there's going to be seller financing or not, stuff like that. And then you can go and sort of draft the more complete agreement that's going to bind you. But yeah, I would say next day is completely reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. I think what separates you maybe from other folks is the ability to get back quickly. I'm a firm believer that if you're able to maintain like active negotiations from the beginning, and you don't have these long periods of waiting, you're just more likely to get deals done. I mean, it's like sales 101, right? Calling people back. Same with like any flip leads or anything that come into the business. If you're not calling them back as quickly as possible, you're losing credibility exponentially as time goes on. It's the same thing with these big deals. So you really want to, set a realistic target. If it takes you 2 days, you have something really busy tomorrow, just tell them that in the initial conversation. At least get back to somebody really quickly, and then do everything you can to get them that offer when you say you're going to get them an offer.
Have you guys ever won a deal solely because you were the first person to it may not have been the best offer that the seller received, but you were just the first person to reach out to him? Have any of you guys ever had a deal come across just because you were first?
I'll answer this one. Yeah, absolutely. Because we see there's on the mail side of people who are sending mail who are getting maybe too much of an influx of it coming back in, or if they're sending text messages or doing RVMs, that they get these initial conversations that are really spotty. And so being there consistently and answering quickly has helped. I mean, it's definitely helped my business. We have, like, with the VA, I have a KPI that's like, we need to be only on text for 5 messages. And then after that, we need to be on the phone with them within 15 or 30 minutes. And if not, setting up a phone call appointment with that person. So that way they know we're opening that conversation. We're really starting to build that rapport quickly, and being the first person to open that discussion, because there's so many times that it probably happens to me too, in other aspects of like, if I'm selling a car or whatever it may be, that the person that I've been talking with, even if somebody else reaches out after that I'm probably just going to continue the conversation with the person that I have been talking with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are watching and you have like a follow-up question or wants to clarify something, drop it in the comments on Facebook, and we'll get to it. And particularly if you're watching thinking, okay, that all sounds good, how am I going to do that back of napkin math? We are going to be giving away part of the Subdivide pro forma. That's going to allow you to do that, right? So really easy, just punch in the numbers that you think you're going to get, best guesstimates, and it'll say this is kind of where you need to be offer wise. If you would like that, comment pro forma in the comments, and we will have our team send it to you. It's really helpful. We use it all the time in our business, and it shortens that time frame, right? Shortens that time frame. And even if you're not talking to off-market sellers, right? This is for on-market stuff too. Speed is just as critical in on-market deals if you're looking at those. So if you guys want that part of that spreadsheet where you can do quick back of napkin math to make quick offers, just comment pro forma. We'll have our team send it to you. Yeah.
We got a question on here. Somebody asking about return, saying, "Hey, are you guys looking to earn 40 to 50% before or after expenses?" I'll just take a crack, and maybe you guys can chime in here too. When I'm looking at a Subdivide deal, I'm almost always using leverage. I often don't. I mean, occasionally I don't, especially on smaller deals that are maybe sub 250K, like capital investment. I might not use a bank. Especially if I just want to be fast, if I have the capital waiting. But if it's a larger deal, then I will typically use leverage. And when I'm using leverage, I want to see. I personally, my own personal investment threshold is I want to see 100% return on the cash invested to move forward. And if I'm bringing on extra investors as well, typically I want to see a little bit more than that, so that I can make money and I can provide a really good return for my investors. And if I'm doing a deal that I'm not using any leverage, I at least want to see about a 60% return on my cash is kind of where my threshold is on the floor. So and that's after expenses, I guess, if you will. So if I was buying a property for $100,000 okay, if I was buying a property for $60,000 and I had to put $40,000 into it to turn it into the end product, and I was using no leverage, no loans, all cash, I would want to make sure that I netted out at the end, after paying commissions and closing and title fees and everything, about $160 back to me to pay back my original $100,000 in equity and then a $60,000 net profit. If I'm using leverage, anyway, it changes. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, when we talk about return on investment, that's taking out all of your expenses, all the costs, costs to make the improvements, costs to find the financing, costs, transactional costs. There's all sorts of hidden things that chip away at your profit. So that's what the detailed underwriting is for. So if you're doing the quick and dirty and you give yourself a little breathing room when it comes time to verify all of your assumptions, and then you start thinking about, I'm going to have to pay a realtor, I'm going to have to pay an accountant, I might have to pay an attorney, I might have to pay this, that, or the other, these soft costs. If you give yourself enough breathing room in the beginning underwriting, when it comes time to do the deep dive, those won't sink your deal. You don't want like hidden soft costs to sink your deal. That's like the most frustrating thing in the world. So don't do that.
And I can talk about this a little bit from like a smaller deal standpoint, because we do some of these minor subdivides that are like these relatively small. So we're talking about something that we're buying for like $40,000 and then turning into, it's like a 40-acre piece, and then we're splitting into 4 10 acres. Very simple, off grid, kind of out in the sticks a little bit, but we're taking this something that's close to, that's like 85 to 90 cents of market value. We're able to buy it at that and then take that for 40,000 and then turn it into an end all-in product that is worth like 80 or 85 or 90. So there we're at a rough number of a gross to gross is like a double your money sort of deal. And then all of the costs that come in with it, the splitting, subdividing, spending $3,000 or $5,000 on a survey for it, and then the realtor expenses and such. And so then we're back down to if we can approximately, on these small deals, fully unleveraged, if we can approximately double our money from gross in to gross out, then that means my return is going to be somewhere in the like a 80%-ish range, which is absolutely that, like, kind of checks our boxes for what will go cash in and cash out. This is on an unlevered project.
Yeah, I think everybody just needs to do your own kind of figuring of what is an acceptable return to you. The thing that you really want to avoid is being, I mean, it's a razor's edge, right? How do you be conservative with your numbers, but not so conservative that you just can never get to the right price on the deal to get it done? That's like that's the art to this. That's really kind of challenging. If you're reasonably realistic but conservative with your end product values, and you're underwriting your deal to have 100+% return, and you've made that offer, you're probably pretty good. Like, and that's going to be really good in most cases where it's going to be hard to get sunk, lose money per se. You might the market may shift. You may not be able to get that price. You may have an extra cost that you didn't expect. You may have I had a contractor quit mid-job. It cost me like $50,000 I wasn't expecting. It happens. But if you underwrite conservatively and protect yourself, then you're not going to lose money in most cases. I hope you don't lose money. I have yet to lose money on a Subdivide. So,
Well, if you give yourself, I'd say in everything, give yourself a 40% margin of error. If you're in the beginning phases, like, you want to be able to withstand a 40% price drop in your end product and not lose any money. After taking into account all your costs and stuff like that, that's usually where you want to be. Like, after that, okay, it starts looking like a good deal, like a can't lose deal. Giving yourself 40% cushion. I mean, things have gone worse in history, but usually you're going to be pretty safe if you give yourself that kind of a breathing room there. So, yeah. Okay, guys, if you guys are interested, I saw a few comments there to get the pro forma. Love it. It'll really help you out. But I enjoyed talking with all you guys. Alex Smith, do you have any more questions? Any more questions we need to answer?
No, I don't think so. If anybody has any questions, make sure you guys comment on Facebook or StreamYard.
We do have
watching
a question in Facebook real quick. It says, any random tips for working with contractors?
Find the
my quick tip.
ones.
Yeah, my quick tip would be get multiple quotes. I mean, I had a one project. I had a detention pond job, 6 detention ponds, and I got 3 separate quotes, and the bids ranged from 110,000 to 280,000, and so that's a huge difference for the same amount of work. So, I mean, the 280 wasn't even feasible. Like the project didn't have the capital to execute, but 110 ended up working out. But yeah, I would say pay them quickly and get multiple bids.
But don't pay them all up front.
Do not pay them up front at all. Never, ever pay a contractor up front. Maybe a deposit of like some small percentage of the total job. I don't know, but never pay a contractor in full up front.
Yeah,
we also find if we're I was just gonna say, we also find if we're working on a project that's like fully remote and we're not close to or local to, it's having like a really set scope of work that's like laid out between you and the contractor. That's a big one, because if you're not there, you're not like overseeing the project. Like with Justin's detention ponds, are they taking them in the right place? Are they doing the right depth as everything else is? So making sure that's like a very clear scope of work that's going to happen.
Yeah, and have them send regular pictures every day of what the work, if they're digging something out, have them send a picture every single day. If they're clearing something, have them send a picture every single day, just so you can kind of keep tabs on it if you're not able to be there in person.
Yeah,
so
or have, in some cases, I've had a realtor that I decided to list the development with before finishing the development. We've started working on that. And so a lot of times, especially if that person stands to make a couple $100,000 or really just any substantial amount of money, they can be that on-site person for you in a lot of cases. But obviously that takes interviewing realtors and really getting comfortable with who that is. But I mean, it's really important, especially when you're developing remotely, which is what I am primarily doing. And I think a lot of us are doing, is having a really solid team in place in the local place that you are operating, right? Contractors is one, realtor, attorney, surveyor, engineer, just to name a few folks that are really important pieces of the team to execute these subdivides. So it's a lot of consideration should be put into who those people are for you if you're doing this remotely.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining in with us. Hope it was helpful. Remember, key takeaway, don't spend all day underwriting something before you make an offer. Do the quick and dirty back and napkin, get those offers out so you can get those deals done. All right. Good chatting with you guys. And we'll see you next time. If you commented pro forma, be on the lookout for that spreadsheet, and we will see you next time.
See y'all.
Thank you guys.
Adios.